My friends, I don't know what your situation, but many times we oversimplify things. We think that money is the master key to all our problems. I have talked to business people. They said, Brother Willy, pray with me. If I only have $10 million, I will build a bigger empire. I have talked to some pastor. He said, Brother Willy, if I only have $5,000, I'm going to build a big church. And there are some members who would ask me, Brother Willy, can you pray so that I will win the lottery? Because when I win the lottery, I'm going to donate 50% to the church. Do you have the 5 million pot money? No. What do you have? $5. What's wrong with that? Oh, that's too small. That's too small. But when I have 5 million, I'm going to give half to the church. 5 cents in your hand that's released is worth more than the 5 million you don't have. And sometimes we think that everything is a money problem. I've been around to learn that most of the problem is almost never the shortage of money. It's never a financial problem. It's a shortage of faith. It's a shortage of vision. It's a shortage of plan or strategy, but never a shortage of money. That's why a lot of lottery winners, they became wealthy overnight, and in a year or two, they're back to where they were, if not more. Why? Suddenly, they have so much money, but they don't have a vision, they don't have a plan. They don't know what to do with the money. So much money coming out of their ears. Let's buy a new car. Let's buy houses there. Oh, I don't like the color. Let's buy another house. And before you know it, they squander it. Instead of making their money grow. Why? Because they don't have a plan for that. They wanted money so bad, and yet they did not have the time to prepare for the blessing. And so, when the break comes, they squander that opportunity, that blessing. I don't know what your problem is, but your problem is never a money problem. If you are having financial problem, that is probably just a symptom of your problem. Philip told Jesus, 8 months of wages will not be enough to buy the food. Really? Is money the problem? Assuming they have 8 months of wages, today, this morning, if I give you 100,000 Hong Kong dollars and I ask you, can you go to McDonald's and order 5,000 meals in 20 minutes because people are hungry? You go there and they say, oh, here's 100,000 Hong Kong dollars, 5,000 Big Mac. Now, the guy will say, sir, ma'am, thank you very much for the money, but order this size, you have to order in advance. We don't have that much bun ready. And yet, we are living in the age of mass production. We have the technology to mass produce, and yet 5,000 is not something on demand. Just imagine during those days, that day, at the feeding of the 5,000, they don't even have refrigeration. If Jesus said, okay, Philip, you need 8 months wages, okay, here's 8 months wages. I turn stones into money. You go and buy. He would go to the bake shop of Uncle Tom and say, Uncle Tom, 5,000 roti, 5,000 bread. And Uncle Tom would say, okay, you come back after 5 years. They would be ready. But the people were hungry. You see, the disciples oversimplified the problem. They thought, oh, we don't have the money. Money was not the problem because money would not be able, assuming they have the money would not be able to meet their needs. Their needs was food, not money to buy food, because it would not be possible for people to prepare that. And yet, many times, we blame the lack of money. We blame what we don't have. for our misery, for our problems. I don't have education. I don't have the good connection. I don't have a big house. I don't have great friends. I don't have a rich dad. That's why I am what I am today. No. No. Jesus said, go and see. See what you have. Go through your life and see, what do I have in my life? And use whatever you have, no matter how little, how limited, how small in your life, and put it in the hands of God, and you are going to see how God is going to bless that, and how God is going to, Jesus did not look up to heaven and say, Abba, this is too little. He thanked God for what he had. He did not thank God for what he did not have. He thanked God for what he has. And how many times have we thanked God for what we have? We ask God for what we don't have. We complain about not having what we wanted to have. But we seldom give any value to what we have because we think it's too old, too small, too little, too limited. And yet that's all God needs. That's all God needs, for us to just release it in His hand and to see great things happen. I have seen great people do great things. And I get to know some of them, and I found out that they're actually ordinary people with ordinary things. They just had an idea. 2008, when there was the world was experiencing the global financial crisis, China announced the birth of more than 200 new billionaires in US currency. How could people become billionaire when the rest of the world were going bankrupt? Because they did what nobody dared to do. They saw opportunities nobody noticed. And they grabbed those opportunities. And that's why they enjoy what other people could only dream about. This morning, I would invite you to look at your own life and find out what you have in your life that you can thank God for. Jesus looked up to heaven, gave thanks, broke the bread, and then started distributing it. That is when miracles started happening. A grateful heart will unlock the door to the supernatural. Sometimes it takes faith to be thankful. You may look at your children and say, oh, expenses, expenses, expenses. Food, food, food. Clothes, clothes, clothes. Diaper, diaper, diaper. Schooling, tuition. But when you start looking, Lord, you have blessed me. Lord, other people wanted to have babies, they don't, and you have given me so many. Thank you. Your life will never be the same again. Yes. When you stop looking at your children as expenses, as expenditure, and start appreciating and seeing what God sees in each of them, you are going to experience something you have never experienced. I was bought from an abortion clinic for, roughly calculated around 500 Hong Kong dollars. I'm sure a lot of you have 500 or more than 500 Hong Kong dollars worth. Well, that was the worth of my life. I was supposed to be aborted. I was not even supposed to be born. But here was this couple with no children, and they wanted to buy a baby. They wanted to adopt a baby. So they asked around, and some relatives said, hey, there's this small clinic there, and we noticed that there are so many pregnant women going there. Why don't you go? So they went to this clinic to inquire if, and check with the doctor and said, hey, we don't have children and we would like to buy a baby. Do you happen to know any baby up for adoption? And the doctor said, sir, ma'am, you come to the wrong place. This is not a maternity clinic. This is an abortion clinic. And if you notice, the pregnant women coming to my clinic will live without a belly and without a baby. And if you notice, my clinic is so quiet, there's no baby crying. You've come to the wrong place. So as this couple turned around, thanked the doctor, turned around and was about to leave, I believe that was when the Lord moved. Suddenly the doctor called them and said, come back, come back. I have a suggestion. Right now there are 2 pregnant women outside waiting for me to attend to them, to operate on them. Why don't you talk to them? Maybe you can convince at least one of them to keep the baby for your adoption. Now, the doctor had no good reason to do that, because if one of them agreed to keep the baby, he would lose a business. He gets paid for aborting babies. And when they don't want to abort the baby, he will lose income. And yet the doctor suggested that. And one of the women agreed that for 5,000 Hong Kong dollars, they would bring the baby to full term and put the baby up for adoption, whatever comes out, boy or girl. And that was how my life was preserved. I never know my biological parents. And then, because my father was an atheist and my mother was a devout Buddhist, my mother had a lot of superstition. She said that, you cannot, she did not want to call me by my real name, because they said the demon might hear your real name, go to the book of life and know how to take your life, shorten your life. So my mother decided to give me a fake name, a nickname, if you will. And you know what my mother would call me? Stinky garbage or rubbish. Big rubbish is bad enough, but if you have to emphasize stinky, that is really stinky. And of course, because of my name, none of my neighbors wanted to play with me. I mean, you're a stinky. I smell good. No, your name is stinky. Nobody wanted to play with me. And worse, one of my neighbors also attended the same school I was attending. And when I was walking across the playground, he would scream, "Stinky garbage!" And everybody found out that my name, and I also lost all my friends in school. So my childhood was a lonely one, because nobody wanted to play with me. My own relatives knew that I was bought from an abortion clinic. I did not really belong to their clan. They disowned me. They did not like me, did not want to play with me. I have all the reasons to discount myself and devalue my own life. Why? I was an unwanted child. I was not supposed to live. I was worth only $500 Hong Kong, and I had no friends. And my name is Stinky Garbage. I had all the reasons to feel sorry for myself, but thank God I met the Lord. I became a Christian at the age of 12. And that's when the Lord started healing me and ministering to me and said, "Hey, my child, you are alive. Don't look at your name. Look at me. Don't look at your past. Look at the future I have in store for you. Don't look at what you don't have. Look at what I can provide for you. Don't look at all those problems that you have. Trust me." And that's when I placed my life in His hand. I released my life into His hand. As a matter of fact, later on when I went on to college, first year college, I grew up in Chinatown and I studied, in Chinese school. So but the place where I came from, we did not have Chinese college at that time. And so I have to enroll in an English college. And imagine, my English professor was so upset, the first semester, and said, "How did you get here? You don't even know how to speak English." And of course, everybody was laughing at me. I've been laughed at all my life, and now in college, I was still being laughed at. And of course, I thought of quitting. But then, I could not quit mid-term. I have to wait until the end of the school year. The second semester, I had a new professor. And the first day, and he was a Caucasian. My God, if I was not good enough for an Oriental English professor, how could I survive under the class of a Englishman professor? And the first day when the professor came in and said, okay, 1/2 sheet of paper, we are going to have a short quiz. And I said, you haven't even taught us anything. You want to give us a quiz? To make a long story short, out of the 10 questions, I only got 3. The next time we met, he distributed the papers. When I got the paper, I looked at the paper, I only had 3 correct. But you know what? I did not see 7 X's. I only see 3 smiley. Boy, I love smiley. And I was inspired. And the teacher and the professor said, Willy? And I raised my hand up, here, congratulations. You have 3 smiley. You got 3. Work harder and you will have more smiley. And I love that. I love that. I was not taught to, I was so used on focusing on my mistakes, and suddenly I wanted more smiley. And I would ask the teacher, talk to the teacher after class and learn. Before I graduated from college, I was writing poems in English, and it was being published in the school organ. And now I am sharing the Word of God in English. Who would have thought that somebody who spent the first 18 years of his life not knowing English would be used to minister in English? Why? Who would have thought that somebody, an unwanted child with so limited resource, would be used of God? Simple. It was worth nothing, including to me. My life was worthless. So I said, might as well give it to you. I don't know what you can do. And the Lord was able to add value. Brothers and sisters, in Jesus' day, he could easily call the highly educated and sophisticated religious leaders of his day to be his disciples. Israel at that time had a very highly developed religious institution. They have the Sanhedrin court, they have a good religious school, and yet, in a very developed society, he chose to call a bunch of, according to Acts chapter 4 verse 13, a bunch of uneducated, untrained, unschooled, ordinary fishermen. Jesus specialized in that, and God specializes in that. Look, people go to the wilderness to hear John the Baptist speak. My friends, if you go to the business guru and consultant and say, hey, I'm going to set up my business, what should I do to have a good business? They will tell you, the consultant will tell you that there are 3 rules to have a prosperous business. Location, location, location. If you are in a good location, people will go to you. And yet you go to the best locations, you see shops closing down. And yet you read the Bible, you see people, some of the prophets who live in the wilderness, who live in the cave, who live in the God-forsaken places. And kings and generals would look for them. Why? Because the Spirit of God is upon them. They had the solution. The power of God is with them. The presence of God is with them. And when the presence of God is upon them, blessings shall run after them and overtake them. My friends, do not devalue your life and yourself because of what you don't have. I pray to God that you start looking at your own life and your own work through the eyes of God. And you will see what other people did not see. And when you see what other people cannot see, you can do what other people cannot do. Then you will start saying, hey Lord, I don't have much, but whatever I have, I put it in your hand. And just like the rod of Moses, it will come alive. It will come alive. Maybe your life, you feel this morning that your life is worth around 5 loaves and 2 fish. That's more than enough. It's more than enough. In fact, if you release it to the hands of God, at the end of the day, you are going to have 12 basketfuls of leftover. The question is, have you released it? Maybe you have some business ideas that you have been nurturing in your mind for so long, but you said, I don't have capital. How can I venture out? I don't have capital. There are a lot of investors wanting to invest. Their problem is they only have money. They are so poor, they only have money. They don't have idea. They don't have any idea how to make things work. All they have is just money. And they need somebody like you who have that God-given idea. They would be more than grateful to work with you. Don't limit God, my friend. Do not devalue your own life. Do not look down and discount your own life because you feel that what you have is not much. I just pray to God that you will begin to see through the eyes of gratitude. Say gratitude. Gratitude. Many times we would fast and pray, spend several months asking God for something. And when we receive the answer to our prayer, we move on to the next request. If ever we thank God, it's a token thank you. Thanks. Just like when you come in the door and if somebody opens the door for you, you say thanks. That's the right thing to do, but it was so shallow. We don't even notice that we say thanks. We have been conditioned to do the right thing by saying thanks, but it did not come from our heart. We did not mean it. And that attitude has been carried on into our walk with God. That we would ask God, beg God, cry, and when God answers our prayer, we are thanks, and then move on. And unless we know how to really thank God for what we have, it's not gonna grow. Have you thanked God really? Said, Lord, I have no request today, but I just want to come before you to thank you. The fact that I am alive. Lord, I may be short. I thank you. I'm taller than some. Lord, I may not have hair, but I have brains. Really? Lord, I may be overweight, but there's so many people that are underweight, skin and bones. Lord, there might be holes in my shoes, but I thank God that I have feet and I can walk. Lord, I did not have much sleep last night, but I'm thanking that I woke up this morning. And when we begin to be able to see things that are worthy to thank God, and we start thanking God, you know something? God is going to develop us to see His fingerprints in all the situations. It's because our default has been programmed negatively, that we are quick to cite problems, hindrances, obstacles, instead of looking at opportunity, blessing, the mercy of God, the grace of God, the hands of God, the fingerprints of God. And when we have done that, we will be different. The Lord has blessed me with 4 beautiful children. Our youngest is 18 years old now. I remember many years ago, our family would have family devotion and communion. And in the family communion, we don't just assign word. Everybody will share read from the scriptures. We would read from different versions. Like I would read from the complete Jewish Bible and then read from the Chinese Bible, and then my wife would read from a different version, the Amplified. My youngest son will read from the New International Version. My eldest son will read from the New King James Version. My second son will read from the New Living Translation, and my daughter will read from the Message Bible. So that everybody has the benefit of different perspective of the same scripture. And then everybody would be sharing. In the communion table, we would sow our seed, prepare our tithe, and we give thanks, and we would present that in the communion table. After the devotion, we put it in the Bible. Next time we go to church, we drop it. We don't, because offering should be a worship. We want to take time to prepare for that. It's not just money, just throw. We want to prepare for that. And so we did that. But aside from the giving of the materials, we want to give the fruit of our mouth. So we also have testimony. What has God done in your life? The first few times we did that, my youngest son would always say, pass, come back to me later, I'll think. So the siblings were laughing at him, you have nothing to thank God for. He took the challenge and he started carrying a journal. Everything that he sees something good, he would write down. Today, everybody's begging him because sometimes our family devotion lasted for 6 hours. And everybody was, come on, Josh, stop it, because, okay, what do you want to thank God for? I want to thank God for letting me excel in the exam. What about you? My son will whip out his journal. This week I have 273 items to thank God for. And he will go through one by one. And everybody's, come on, just take top 10. I cannot. There are so many. And when he's finished his 273, he says, I have some more. Let me add. What happened? He has developed himself to be so keen, so sensitive, to use his word, to see the fingerprints of God in every situation. Sometimes we have problems and he would embarrass us because I thank God that these things happen. Because of these things happen, we were able to do this and do that. He was able to see the grace of God even in the most difficult situation, and that changed the whole atmosphere at home. He was 12 years old or 11 years old at that time. Today he's 18 years old, leading two professors to the Lord. His second year in college. He's discipling 2 professors and 35 other students. And when we see my son, he does not float on air. He loves fun. He loves computer games. He is a normal child. You can be in love with Jesus and still live a normal life. All my 4 children, 3 of them are already working, are serving Jesus. You know what? They did not look, what can happen to me? My dad was bought from an abortion clinic of all of 500 Hong Kong dollars, worthless. No, they start thanking God. The Lord preserved my father, and we are the second generation. God has a purpose. God can use my father, the more He can use me. My friends, I don't know about you. Maybe you are not like me, bought from an abortion clinic with a name as stinky rubbish. So you're better off. But have you found reasons to thank God for? Have you ever paused and said, Lord, even if you did not do anything for me today, I can still thank you because of so many things. And when you start developing your attitude of gratitude and you become so sensitive of the hands of God, no matter how dire the situation is, you know what? Suddenly, your problem start to shrink. And opportunity started. Suddenly, you see God everywhere. That was what happened in 2 Kings. One day, the servant of the prophet woke up and saw that, they were surrounded by their enemies. And he said, my Lord, we have been surrounded. And Elisha said, cool down and just pray. Lord, open his eyes. And the Lord opened the eyes of his master, and behold, the whole mountainside was full of angels and chariots of fire protecting them. Have you been living through life blind? Or are you seeing things that you have previously not noticed? It is not an accident why you are in this place this morning, or you are living in this city. Many people wanted to live in Hong Kong, and many people in Hong Kong wanted to go elsewhere. I just came back from a ministry trip to Nepal. When I was on my way there, except for 5 Nepali passengers, all the passengers were foreigners. They said they love Nepal. One Japanese lady told me that she has been living in Nepal for 13 years. I said, why? He said, I love Nepal. And almost every Nepali I talk to, they want to go to Singapore, Hong Kong, US, UK. Oh, this is terrible. I said, hey, why? There are so many tourists that would like to go to the country I live in, the Philippines. And they love their beaches, and then they would go sunbathing because they wanted to look like the Filipinos. And the Filipinos would spend a fortune buying skin whitening soap. What is the problem? There's nothing wrong with being white, and there's nothing wrong with being dark. You know what's the problem? Ingratitude. 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 The greatest sin of the Israelites was not grumbling and complaining, although they did. The greatest sin of the Israelites was ingratitude. Imagine, after God has performed so many miracles, and they're so dramatic, parting of the Red Sea, parting of the River Jordan, the pillars of day and pillars of fire, the pillars of cloud, the provision of manna and the quail, and yet they are unhappy. They just keep grumbling and grumbling and grumbling. Why? They are ingrateful. And I pray to God that we will not be ingrateful. That when you don't see any way out of your situation, all you have to do is look back. Look back and recall and remember the miracles of yesterday. How God has answered your prayer. How God has protected your life. How God has moved in your life. How God has given you favor. How God has provided for you. How God has healed you. Even small things. And then you are going to remember those things. And you are going to be encouraged and said, if God would do all those things, He's not going to stop today. And you look at your present situation and you see all the opportunities laying around you, all the blessings, all the graces, all the mercies. And you know what? Every one of you, every grateful soul will be able to reach your respective destiny, the destiny God has for you. This morning, I don't know what is your situation. Maybe your name is not Stinky, but you feel stinky. Your situations stink. If God could use a stinky rubbish like me, unwanted by his own mother, you are better qualified. Do not devalue your life. Do not look down on you. You start looking at yourself through the eyes of God. You start looking at yourself through the eyes of faith. You start looking at yourself through the eyes of compassion. When you come here, don't start telling God your problem. You start thanking God. You start exercising just like my son started developing a sensitivity to praiseworthy things. Make it a practice. I learned from my son. My family now, every member of the family, we keep a journal. And we start writing. And sometimes when I'm discouraged and I go through that and I started to cry, I had no idea that I have received so much graces and blessing from God. And after reviewing those notes, I close my notebook, I look at my situation. Suddenly, my problem doesn't look that bad. Suddenly, my faith is strengthened. My hope is restored. And I'm willing to release my situation into the hand of God. There are so many blessings about to be unleashed in this room today. Many lives, you have been depressed the past few weeks. I sense in my spirit when you should be rejoicing if you see what God has in store for you. The Bible says that God sees the end, God knows the end from the beginning. Don't feel hopeless. Don't give up. Do not devalue yourself. Other people's opinion don't matter. What God says concerning you is all that matters. I am a living proof. And like what I said, if I have reason to thank God for, I'm sure you have more. You have more. Some of you may be sick in your body. That's not the end of your life. That's not the end. The end is when you give it up and said, the doctor said, my case is hopeless. Start thanking God for your life. Every time you wake up, you thank God. Before you go to bed, you thank God. Whatever you do, you thank God. I know a friend, and with this I will close. He's a very famous motivational speaker. And he was sharing with me this testimony. He's a Christian, by the way. He said that one time he goes around giving speeches, and people pay for him. He's not a minister, so people pay good money to hear him talk. Sometimes $5,000. He's well known, and so usually he would have as early as I think 2 years advance booking. And so one time he was in a rush to go to one state, and he arrived at the airport on time, but for some reason the plane took off ahead of schedule. As he arrived at the counter, the plane was taxiing, and he was so angry because he would miss his appointment, and people paid good money for that. Just to reschedule that would be a big mess. And he started creating a scene there. He was a Christian, mind you, but he lost it. He was so angry. He was threatening to sue the airlines and screaming and shouting. He said, I also cussed a little bit. I thought that was justified. And they were trying to calm me down. Suddenly there was an announcement. As the plane was about to take off, it crash landed and burst into flame. Everybody died. He said with tears coming out of it, this was several years later. He said, Willy, if you go to my house today, framed there was the boarding pass. I never exchanged it, replaced it. That was a valuable lesson. Sometimes things do not go our way. It could be a delay you did not want to or what. God is still in control. We just don't see everything, and all we have to do is just pray like Elijah. Lord, open my eyes. Open my eyes and see your hand in this. I don't understand all of this now, but I know you do. And at the right time, when everything has unfolded, I will thank you even more. But today I would want to start thanking you because you are in control. You are in control. Do not cry because one door closes. You thank God so that He would open your eyes to see the other doors opening up. He said, I also cussed a little bit. I thought that was justified. And they were trying to calm me down. Suddenly there was an announcement. As the plane was about to take off, it crash landed and burst into flame. Everybody died. He said with tears coming out of it, this was several years later. He said, Willy, if you go to my house today, framed there was the boarding pass. I never exchanged it, replaced it. That was a valuable lesson. Sometimes things do not go our way. It could be a delay you did not want to or what. God is still in control. We just don't see everything, and all we have to do is just pray like Elijah. Lord, open my eyes. Open my eyes and see your hand in this. I don't understand all of this now, but I know you do. And at the right time, when everything has unfolded, I will thank you even more. But today I would want to start thanking you because you are in control. You are in control. Do not cry because one door closes. You thank God so that He would open your eyes to see the other doors opening up.